Hi everyone, this is Tila from My Teacher La, and today we have topic number 1 from Mathematics IGCSE. So today's paper has about 15 questions, and we are looking into the first topic on numbers, approximation, prime factors, even standard forms, and a few other simpler type of questions, lower bounds and upper bounds, and so on. So there'll be 15 questions as I mentioned earlier, and I think we can start right now. So question number 1, write the numbers in order of size with the smallest first. Now the first thing that you need to do is that you need to be able to write down all the different values given to you in terms of decimal points so that you are easily able to compare between the different values. So you just take your calculator and put the value square root of 10 and you should be able to get something like this. For this one, the value is already here, so I don't need to use the calculator. For 22 over 7, I just put that in my calculator and I got something like this, 31428. And for pi, again, I'm using a calculator, and this gives me 3.14159, and of course the number just goes on further, so I didn't write the entire number because all I need to do is enough decimal places to make some comparison. So please always remember to see the bolded the word in bold before you start doing anything. So smallest first. Which one is the smallest number in this case? So you will start with 3.14. That's the smallest. And the second one is 3.141. So that would be pi. Do not end up writing this number instead of pi. So that will give you a wrong answer. Okay, the next one would be 22 over 7. Okay, and the largest number in this case is root 10. Question number 2. This question is on prime numbers. P is the largest prime number between 50 and 100. So what you do is just work backwards. So 100 is not a prime number, 99 is not a prime number, 98 is not, 97, yes, 97 cannot be divided by anything else except for itself. So I think the largest prime number would be 97. What about the smallest prime number between the same range? So you start from the 50 now. So 51 can be divided, 52 can still be divided, 53 cannot be divided by any other numbers. Okay, so that means P is 97. So I'm gonna calculate the value, 97 minus 53. So you're gonna get 44 in this case. That's your answer. Question number 3. Calculate the value of the entire thing. Now this is easy, but you may make mistakes if you do not enter the right values into the calculator. So I like to do it in a safe way. So I do it at least twice. So the first step, you can actually put the entire thing in your calculator and see whether you get an answer. Now the other step is always start from the inside. So change all the fractions into a decimal. So in this case, I'd rather use 0.5 in my calculator rather than writing 1 over 2. So because fractions, you tend to make more mistakes in inputting the values into the calculator. So once you're done putting inside the calculator for all this thing, you should be able to find this value. Remember that you have to write down all the figures that you see in your calculator. It can be long, but write everything. So in my case, my calculator currently shows me 0.461 and then 939 and 766. So that's my answer. Okay, finally, write your answer correct to 4 significant figures. So the first significant figure starts here. That's your first, second, third, fourth significant figure. Check the digit right after the fourth significant figure. So this is less than 5. Therefore, I do not add any value to the fourth significant figure. So my answer would be 0 0.4619. So this is in 4 significant figures. Question number 4. Change 64 square meters into square millimeters. Give your answer in standard form. Okay, so the first step that you need to do is to write down this in the units that is given. So square meter is also written as meter square. Now you need to change this into millimeter square. In order for you to do the change, don't think about the standard form yet, but in order for you to do the change, you need to first understand what's the conversion rate if I were to change 1 meter square to millimeter square. Okay, so let's try that first. First step, 1 meter square is also equivalent to 1 meter times 1 meter. So I'm just doing the long way so that you understand how the conversion is done, but if you are already good with it, then go ahead and just forward this video. So 100 centimeter times 100 centimeter. So I just converted meter to centimeter, and finally convert it to millimeter. So that's add another 0 on each side. So add another 0. Now in other words, how many zeros are there? You have a total of 6 zeros, which means this becomes 1 times 10 to the power of 6 millimeters. So that's 1 meter square. Okay, equivalent to 1 times 10 to the power of 6 millimeter square. So I forgot to put the square here because it's a multiplication of 2 similar units. Now once you have that conversion ready, all you need to do is take that big value, multiply by the conversion rate. Therefore, your final answer will give you 64 times 10 to the power of 6 millimeter square. Now, I mentioned final answer, but I didn't read the question properly. It says standard form, right? So this is not entirely the right way to express standard form. So you should move your digit up here. So it becomes 6.4. So you add another power at the back. So this is your final answer. Question number 5. A fence is made from 32 identical pieces of wood, each of length 2 meters, correct to the nearest centimeter. Now once you see this word correct to something, you already know this. It's something to do with either upper bound or lower bound or both. Now in this case, you have to calculate the lower bound for the total length of the wood used to make this fence. They didn't say what shape is the fence, so that's fine. You just need to calculate 32 identical multiplied by one of those wood. So first thing, we are only looking at lower bound, right? So this is given in meters, but your nearest value is in centimeters. So there is something that you need to do first. So you write 2.00 meter. Now why do I put 2 decimal places here? The reason is because the last digit here will become your nearest centimeter, right? So 1 meter is equivalent to 100 centimeter, right? So that means there's 2 decimal places. So you have 2 decimal places when you convert back into meter. So now, in order for you to find the lower bound, you first need to get the unit value here. The unit value would be 1, okay? 0.01. Divide by 2. Always divide it by 2. You will end up with a 0.005. Okay, so once you get that division done, all you need to do is either plus or minus. So if you plus, you get the upper bound. If you minus, you get the lower bound. In our case, we are only looking at lower bound. So what we're going to do for lower bound, you take 2.00 minus 0.005. So you will end up with 1.995 meters. Get it? All right. So the common mistake that students tend to make is that automatically they will think that, oh, it's just plus minus 0.5. So they'll end up saying the upper bound is 2.5. That's incorrect. This is only true if we were to say it's correct to the nearest meter, not centimeter. Right. Once that's done, we have not completed the question yet. So they asked 32 identical pieces. You just do the multiplication. 1.995 multiplied by 32. So your final answer should be somewhere around 63.84 meters. Okay, so that's your final answer. All right, moving on to question number 6. Now this question is quite similar to question number 1. These are one of the most simple type of questions that you will ever see in your exam for IGCSE mathematics. Now, don't make mistakes. So let's be cautious and highlight what's needed. So they ask for the largest value first. Now, before I start comparing, let's try to get all these values in the similar form. So I prefer to always use the decimal value. So in this case, let's see. Square root 23, I can also write as 4.7958. Just use your calculator. 48%, that's 0.48. 4.8, no changes, keep it that way. This one, you write into decimal, you get 4.8181. Yeah, that's about it. Now, what do you see? You see that the largest value would be the fraction. So you put the largest value first. And the second largest value that I'm seeing is 4.80. So 4.80. And then the third one is, which one is that? Square root of 23. So square root of 23. And finally, the smallest value is the 48%. Again, as I mentioned, do not write the values in decimals. Write these numbers in this form instead, and the final answer. Right, moving on to question number 7. So another conversion question, and finally in standard form. So 1 second equivalent to 10 to the power of 6 microseconds. Change the microseconds into minutes. Now the other thing that you need to know is, this is quite simple. 1 minute equivalent to 60 seconds. So there's two conversions that you need to make. First, convert this into seconds. So 3 times 10 to the power of 13 microseconds divide by 10 to the power of 6 microsecond. And finally, divide by 60 in order for you to get the minute. So just put inside your calculator and you should be able to get your final answer, which should be 5 times 10 to the power of 5. And this unit is minutes. Question number 8. The length of each side of an equilateral triangle, so I'm just going to simply draw it. Every information that you have from the question, try to always imagine it. So just draw it out. And each one of it is 74 millimeter, correct to the nearest millimeter. So which means we are looking at this last digit. Calculate the smallest possible perimeter of the triangle. Okay. So which means there's this plus this, or times by 3. Okay. So 74 nearest millimeter. So we take the last digit. So the place value for this would be ones. So this is ones. So 1 divided by 2. You will get 0.5. Okay. Now what do I actually mean by place values? This is basically, if let's say you have a number like 1, 5, 8, 6, 8. So this is your ones, this is your tens, this is your hundreds, and so on. So ones have a value of 1, tens have a value of 10, and this have a value of 100. So in this case, nearest millimeter is the last digit, therefore it has the value of ones. Okay, I hope that makes more sense, because every time you are calculating upper bound and lower bound, this is the first thing that you need to figure out. And if I had a decimal, so this would be 0.1. Okay, so we call this tenth, right? Okay, let's get back to this. So they want the smallest possible parameter, which means we are looking at the lower bound. So in order for us to get the lower bound, we take 74 minus 0.5. So you end up with 73.5. Now since the triangle has 3 equal sides, so you take 73.5 multiplied by 3. So the final answer should give you 220.5 millimeter. Write each number correct to one significant figure and estimate the value of the calculation. So there are two parts. So first, you're doing the significant figure, and then you're estimating the calculation. I mean, this part is not too difficult. You will see once I start doing it. So you must show your working, which means every conversion to the significant figure, please show, do not just write your final answer. I know you can do that, but don't do it. Okay, so first significant figure, all right, 2. 2 is your first significant figure, so check the number at the side. This is more than 5, add 1. So this becomes 3. First significant figure, check the second digit. It's not more than 5, or it's not even 5. Therefore, don't do anything. Just put a 4. And the last one, plus. This is the second digit after the first significant number. It's more than 5. Therefore, you add 1 to the front. So you end up with 8. Don't make the same mistake that I did earlier. So I ended up editing out that video. So I made a mistake by multiplying everything. So that's wrong. So 4 times 3, 12. 12 plus 8, that's 20. Your final answer is just 20. Don't make silly mistakes. Next step. Okay. Next question. Use a calculator to work out the exact value of the entire thing. Again, as I mentioned earlier, try not to use fractions if you can find a simplified version or decimal point of that value. So I prefer to put inside decimal places in my calculator. It's just a matter of preference. If you're okay with putting fractions in, just fine, go ahead. You shouldn't have any problem unless if you are not so careful. Okay. So this one don't really need that much of a working. So you just need to put in the entire thing into the calculator. And remember they said exact value. So when they say exact value, which means whatever number that appears on your calculator, write the entire thing. So in my calculator, I'm getting 2496. That's it. 5 more questions to go. So let's go to the next one. Oh no. Okay, that works. Okay, again, simple things. I'm not going to do in details. I'm just going to simply do my steps. So this should be 0.94868. This gives you 0.9654. This gives me 0.81. This gives me 0.729. So they want the smallest number, which is the smallest number. This one. So it's 0.9 cube. All right, then 0.9 square. So this is smaller, and root 0.9, and finally cube root of 0.9. So this is the largest, and this is the smallest. Go down. Question number 12. This is quite easy. All you need to do, just put inside your calculator. But I prefer to do this. So there are 2 points, right? So I try to change this first. What do I get in this case? 0.01152. This is one step. So that will give you a working mark. Then you need to change this into standard form. Therefore, move the values 1, 2. So you move twice. So that means it's 1.152 times 10 to the power of negative. Question number 13. We're almost done with this paper. Standard form, this is fairly simple. You just move your decimal places 1, 2, 3. So that should give you 6.58. Since you're moving to the right, negative 3. Okay. Part B, correct to 2 significant figures. So what I can do is I'm just gonna look at 2 significant figures. The first one and then the second one. So the third one helps me to figure out whether to add 1 or not. Yes, it's bigger than 5 or equivalent to 5, so it adds up to 1. So I'm gonna get 0.0066. So that's my final answer, which I can write here, 0.0066. Or you can choose to do it here. Two significant figure, 1, 2, check. Add 1, you can also write 6.6 times 10 to the power of -3. Both answers are correct, so you can do it either way. Question 14. When a car wheel turns once, the car travels 120 centimeter. Correct to the nearest centimeter. Okay, that means that this value. Okay, so that's once. Calculate the lower and upper bound for the distance traveled by the car when the wheel turns 20 times. So they want both lower and upper bound. So what do we do? So it's ones, right? So 1 divided by 2, you get 0.5 plus minus 0.5. So for lower bound, your lower bound should give you 119.5, and then your upper bound plus the 0.5, you end up with 1 to 0.5. Okay, so they say it turns 20 times, multiply this by 20, multiply this by 20. So in the end, you will end up with the lower bound, you get 2390 centimeter, and then the upper bound, you will end up with a 2410. Just make sure that the upper bound is higher than the lower bound. If not, that means you have made some mistake. That's it. And the final question for the day. Let's see. The side of a square is 6.3 centimeter. Correct to the nearest millimeter. Okay, which one is your millimeter in here? So the first one is definitely a centimeter. So the second decimal point here, that's your millimeter. So the place value for this is 0.1. So you divide this by 2, you will end up with 0.05. Okay, now let's proceed. The lower bound of the perimeter is given as u, and upper bound is given as v. Calculate the value of u, which basically just means it's a fancy way of saying lower bound in this case. So let's just get the lower bound. You get 6.3 minus 0.05, which gives me, let me see, 6.3 minus 0.05, what do I get? My God, my brain, okay, all right, I got it, 6.25. Okay, now what do? We just take this and multiply by 4. Now, why are we doing the multiplication of 4? Remember that they mentioned that this is the side of the square. So they want the perimeter. So a square should have how many sides? 4. So 4 sides. So final answer should give you 25 centimeter for the lower bound. Okay, so here they want the upper bound minus the lower bound. Please don't be confused that u sounds like upper and make a mistake. Right, so to get the upper bound, okay, let me just label this as lower bound here, just in case. So to get the upper bound, all I need to do is take 6.3 plus 0.05. Done. So you get 6.35, and then you multiply by 4. So in this case, you will end up with 25.4 centimeter. Now this is not the final answer because they want the difference between the upper and lower bound. So I'm going to write that in blue color. So take this upper bound minus the lower bound. Okay, so you end up with 0.4. Please remember your units. Because they didn't put a unit here, you just put the unit there. 0.4 centimeter. And that's it for today's session. Please download the PDF file for the tutorial inside the YouTube description. My links all are available there. You can just download. Please make use of it as how you see fit. I don't mind at all. Okay, so click like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next session. Bye.